Hey y'all, it's Gemini Jazz with House of Chiron, and I'm just here for the good news, honey. And we are back with another video for Transit Talk. In this video, we will be discussing the Saturn retrograde that happened May 10th. And Saturn will be retrograde all the way until September 29th of this year. So, Saturn is currently in the sign of Aquarius, where it has been since March the 21st. And it will be transiting backwards into the sign of Capricorn, where it just came from. So once it's in the sign of Capricorn, it will be there until it stations direct, and it will not move back into Aquarius until December 17th of 2020. And once it is in the sign of Aquarius from December 17th, it will be there for another 2.5 years where it will stay. So let's talk about all of that. So right now, Saturn is in Aquarius at 1 degree, stationed in retrograde. It's going backwards. And right now what that energy is doing, it is tying up loose ends, right? So it is like, and that's all of the Capricorn energy. So let's talk about Capricorn. So it's tying up the loose ends of those energies. And I say the Capricorn energies because that is where it was since 2017. Since the end of 2017, it's been in Capricorn. So what have you been putting your work and your effort in since the end of 2017? That's something to think about. And with Saturn, Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. It's also the traditional ruler of Aquarius, but it is the ruler of Capricorn. And it's all about the work. It's all about the structure, the stability. It's about the career. You know, it's also about the finances as well. So where have you been putting in the work in your public image as well as your career, and making these two things work together in regards to your foundation and your influence? What influence do you have that is being projected in your public image? So that is what all of this Capricorn, the Saturn and Capricorn energy has been about for the last 2.5, 3 years, just about. So now that Saturn is in Aquarius and it's retrograde, and it will be retrograding back into Capricorn, what it is doing is tying up those loose ends from the last 2.5, 3 years. So I'm gonna give you an example. For instance, with me, I have Capricorn in my 9th house, and the 9th house is of higher education and beliefs and, you know, the knowledge, education, long distance travel. So I have had Saturn in Capricorn in my 9th house of higher education since the end of 2017. I enrolled in school in 2017. I have not been able to actually be recognized for receiving my degree in psychology because we are social distancing, which is, if you go to the description and below, in the box below, I will talk about, I have a video talking about social distancing, and that is when Saturn moved into Aquarius, okay, March 21st. So I have not been able to get the recognition for the hard work and the efforts that I have put in for the last 2.5, 3 years. So with Saturn being a retrograde and it moving back into Capricorn, it is tying up those loose ends. So it is very likely that I will have the commencement sometime between now and September, early to mid-September. And that not just goes for me, but, you know, in all areas. But that's just an example, because Saturn gives long-lasting gifts, especially if you have been doing the work, if you have been putting in the work, and really being committed and disciplined and responsible. So you will be rewarded. And Saturn gives, you know, people think Jupiter gives rewards. Jupiter gives abundance, yes, and it can be an overabundant, but Saturn gives long-lasting gifts that last a lifetime, because Saturn, the planet Saturn, does not transit very quickly. It goes over all 12 zodiac signs. It takes 28 years for it to transit all 12 signs. So a Saturn transit takes 28 years. So think about the discipline. Think about the patience, just the responsibility of a planet that takes 28 years to transit, and imagine the gifts that it will give, that it brings once it completes something, right? So once you complete something, that is a gift, and that is what Saturn does. So right now is a time for review. It's also a time for renewal. So with Saturn being in retrograde, we are going to be going through this review, and during the review, I always call Saturn Big Daddy Saturn, because it's like, you know, your father or your grandfather comes around and you go to your grandfather's house or your dad's house, and it's like, oh, okay, so what you been up to? Oh, okay, and you know, they give you a gift. Or, oh, okay, well, that's good. You know, they give the best gifts and the gifts that last a lifetime because you have been disciplined in doing your work. So Big Daddy Saturn is coming through to give us these gifts. But we are first going to go through a review and a renewal before we can receive what this is. So you will have your rewards to come forward during this time if you have been doing the work, and you still will be rewarded for whatever it is that you have been putting the efforts in. So keep that in mind. Whatever you have been putting your focus and your efforts in, that's where you will see something come into manifestation. So where have you been encouraged to take responsibility in the things that you are supposed to be doing, your work, your efforts? Where have you developed boundaries? Because Saturn is of limitations and boundaries as well. So where have you been developing your boundaries? Where have you found a place to, or a need to place your boundaries or set boundaries? And where do you need to revise some boundaries? Because there are some things that you possibly are saying, hey, you know what, I need to take down this wall. This is not really beneficial for me. It's just, you know, my boundaries are just too stern, too firm, you know. So where is there a need to revise those boundaries as well? And lastly, where have you been spending your time? Because Saturn is Father Time. Saturn is Chronos. You bet you didn't know that. So where have you been spending your time? Where have you been putting your focus? So also keep all of these things in mind, that is what Saturn is going to be coming through and asking us by way of bringing certain situations and certain things in our life that's going to come up, so we can actually look at ourselves internally and take responsibility for ourselves, so that way when the reward comes, it's like, okay, yep, I worked hard on that, cool. Or that's what my focus has been. So what you focus on, that's what you manifest more of. That kind of energy should be coming to the forefront. And so how can you also look at where you have been distracted and remove those distractions? That's another thing that Saturn retrograde will bring. So there's going to be an opportunity to have more energy and more focus, so that way we can apply the discipline and the order and the structure that is needed. So this is just really tying up the loose ends from what we have been experiencing over the last 2.5, 3 years. And yeah, so just, it's really not, you know, Saturn, people hear Saturn retrograde, ooh, it's really not what people make it to be. It's not like a harsh transit. Like, in my personal opinion, I would, you know, Mercury, because it goes retrograde all the time, Mercury is probably more troublesome because it's like something that affects your day-to-day routines, whereas Saturn is just a review of what you have been doing for a course of time, depending on what, you know, sign it's in. And in this case, it's been in its home sign of Capricorn. So this is the work. This is the discipline, the order, the limitations, the boundaries. This is your public image. This is your career, your money, your finances. These are the things that we typically don't, you know, want to talk about often. But we have been in review of these things over the last 2.5, 3 years. And this is also, if you keep in mind, Saturn in Capricorn also rules all structures. That includes politics, that includes government, the legal, all of those things. So there's going to be a review from a collective energy of these things as well. We're going to be looking at a review and a renewal of our, you know, politics, the whole legal system, all of those things. So just how things have been going with social distancing, how the government has been, you know, doing certain things. So don't be surprised if something new tries to come into implementation during this time in regards to government entities or something that they said that they were going to do is going to be like, nah, we're not going to do that. Just keep that in mind as well. So at this time, I will briefly, very briefly, go over where this is happening in your chart by your rising sign, starting with Aries. So Aries, this is transiting from your 11th house back into your 10th house. So the 11th house is the house of your hopes, your wishes, your material gains, your long-term goals, as well as your social groups and networking. So it is going to be retrograding back into your 10th house of your public image and your career. So it's going to be tying up these loose ends in regards to your career, some type of change that you have made, or that some type of limitation or boundary that has been set could possibly be lifted in regards to your career and your public image at this time. So yeah, just keep track of that, keep aware of that. And another thing with Saturn is to not be resistant. You know, don't be resistant to the energies, because it's going to go back direct, and you could be very well rewarded for the work that you have been putting in regards to your career and public image over the last 2.5, 3 years. And then it moved into Aquarius, and there's been some type of limitation to you earning something, like in regards to your material gains or even your long-term goals. It could be a raise or a new position, and you have been limited or blocked. And so now with this retrograde, it's very possible that you could receive the money or even the title, the raise that you have been seeking. So Taurus and Taurus rising, this is moving from your 10th house of public image and career back into your 9th house of higher education, philosophies, long distance travel. So I have a Taurus rising, like I told y'all before. So Saturn is in Aquarius in my 10th house, and is moving backwards into Saturn in Capricorn in my 9th house. So I just may receive the reward for graduating college, possibly. And so with others, it could be that you have you had a trip that you had planned, and you weren't able to go on that trip when Saturn moved into Aquarius and all the social distancing things happened. And now that Saturn is moving back into Capricorn, you are feeling a lot safer, a lot better with traveling, or even feeling like a reward to travel somewhere long distance, or feeling that you will be, your beliefs could be, you know, something that you have developed over the last couple of years in regards to your beliefs, your philosophies that you've been studying, and now you have been limited on expressing those things, that, or even your beliefs in general. You could have just really been working on changing your beliefs and changing your thought process, and now that's going to be like a lift and give you that confidence in that area. And so for Gemini and Gemini rising, this is moving from your 9th house of beliefs and long distance travel back into your 8th house of resources obtained through other people. This is karma, this is debt, this is intimate relationships. So there is a chance that you have been limited in travel, and now you are, or possibly limited in your beliefs. You have been held up with applying to school or even going to school, and so now that is moving back into your 8th house of resources. Now you're going to be tying up the loose ends of what you have been experiencing over the last 2.5, 3 years in regards to your resources, your debt. Maybe you have been clearing out debts. Maybe you have also, for instance, this is a scenario. You could have been saving your money to pay off some student loans or some school loans so you can possibly go into higher education, maybe your master's degree or something, and you have been limited and restricted with doing so. And so now that limitation will be lifted. So that's just a scenario for Gemini rising. Okay, and for Cancer, in Cancer rising, this is moving from your 8th house of resources obtained through other people, karma and debt, and moving back into your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, marriage, and contracts. So there could be a contract that you have been working on. This could be a relationship that you have, whether it's a business, you know, platonic, intimate. There could be a relationship that you have been really cultivating and building on, and you have been feeling restricted and limited in that, or restricted and limited in some type of contract, maybe possibly for business. And now that it's moving back into your 7th house, you could very well have that limitation lifted. You could see a new way of doing things, or possibly the finances in regards to a contract could, you know, come through, or the money, the numbers could change. Or even in a partnership, maybe you had some shared resources with your partner, and there has been, maybe your partner has had some restrictions on their money recently, and now it's moving back into your 7th house, and now that could be a limitation that's now lifted. Okay, for Leo and Leo rising, we have this moving from your 7th house back into your 6th house. So your 6th house is the house of work, ritual, routine, and public service, as well as your health. And so maybe over the last 2.5, 3 years, you have been really on a strict health regimen, and you've been really working out, having a really strict schedule, and then with the social distancing and all the limitations that we have, that has been placed on us recently, it has really hindered you from possibly, you know, having your work buddies, your workout buddies, or even going to work, and that's where you know, did your exercise, or even just keeping up with your routine has been limited. So this is a possibility that this will be lifted from you. You can now get back into that, or seek the rewards from those things. They will come to fruition at this time. Okay, and Virgo and Virgo rising. This is moving from your 6th house back into your 5th house. So there could possibly be some limitations in regards to your work, or you could have really been putting forth some efforts into your work, and now over the last 2.5, 3 years, you could have really experienced some you know, really diving into your creativity, your self-expression, things that bring you joy. You have not been able to do so because, you know, your routine and your schedule has just been thrown off. And so now with it moving back into your 5th house, you're going to be seeking and reaping those rewards for that energy that's coming up, and what brings you joy and happiness, your hobbies, your possibly a romantic relationship that you have been seeking. You're going to be receiving those rewards for that energy and that effort and work that you have been putting in over the last 2.5 years. So moving on to Libra and Libra rising. This is moving from your 5th house back into your 4th house of home and family. So you could have possibly been restricted on moving or building some type of foundation in regards to your home, your family, possibly even beautifying your home. And it moving backwards into your 4th house is going to give you the rewards that you have been putting forth. Maybe you have been really expressing the joy and the happiness that you will have in regards to moving into a new space or building your home. Maybe something is going to come to the forefront in regards to your home, your family, possibly your mother, just your influence, you know, because the 4th house is the house of influence. What is your influence? Where does your influence lie? And so that could be really coming to the forefront for you, and you could be really reaping the rewards regarding that. Okay, and for Scorpio and Scorpio rising, this is moving from your 4th house back into your 3rd house of your neighbors, your community, small business. This is also communication, short distance travel, as well as vehicles. So also as well as social media, because it's the house ruled by Gemini. So this is social media, all forms of communication, any way that you receive information. This is the house that rules it. So the 3rd house, maybe you have been limited on your short distance travel, your daily commute, and maybe you have been really putting forth the effort in regards to your small business, or really putting forth effort in developing your communication, and, you know, just really projecting yourself through your business or through your community even. and you have felt limited recently. And so now you're going to be feeling and seeking and receiving the rewards for the efforts and the work that you have been putting in over the last couple of years. Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, this is moving from your third house back into your second house. And the second house is the house of values. This is the house of money, partnerships, relationships, as well as the things that bring you pleasure, which are your of the senses. This is the house of beauty and art. This is the house ruled by Venus, as well as Taurus. So this moving back into your second house, maybe you have been really putting forth effort in the values. This is your self-worth as well. So just really trying to be in alignment with what it is that you value, your integrity, and, you know, putting forth the efforts in ways of relating to others, as well as your values in your money, developing some stability financially. And this could have been placed on hold recently, and now with it moving backwards into the second house, you could very well reap the benefits of the work that you have been putting in over the last couple of years in regards to your values and where you have been trying to build this stability, whether it's stability through partnerships, stability through your finances, as well as maybe your business, if that's something, or through your work, or just even within yourself, just the stability within yourself. Okay, and for Capricorn and Capricorn rising, this is moving from your second house back into your first house. And so this is the house of the self, who you are, how you project, how you see yourself, how others view you. So you possibly have been really working on projecting yourself from an authentic space of who you are, and you have been really feeling limited in really connecting to yourself, as well as in the terms of, you know, your projection. And now you're going to be really reaping the rewards, excuse me, for stepping into your authenticity and really projecting who you are from a soul level and from a very authentic space. Okay, and for Aquarius and Aquarius rising, this is moving from your first house back into your 12th house. So this is the house of the subconscious. This is of your spiritual practices as well. And so maybe over the last couple of years, you have been really working on your subconscious beliefs. You have been working on a spiritual practice, and you have been feeling limited with connecting with others from a spiritual sense, and then not necessarily being able to practice your, sorry, my phone messed up, but excuse me. So you have not been able to practice your beliefs or your spiritual practices over this last, you know, couple of weeks, or, you know, just recently. And so now you're going to be able to move forward with that energy and receive the benefits from really practicing your spiritual beliefs, or just even reprogramming your subconscious. Possibly you've been in therapy, you're going to have a breakthrough, something along those lines. Pisces and Pisces rising, this is moving from your 12th house of subconscious beliefs and moving back into your 11th house of long-term goals, social groups, social gatherings, as well as your material gains. And maybe you have been feeling limited with connecting with your networking groups, and you have not been able to, maybe part of the way you make your money has been through connecting with others, and you have not been able to do so because, you know, things have just been on lockdown. And now you're going to be having some things lifted, some limitations that have been placed down are going to be lifted. You're going to be receiving the rewards for the things that you were really working hard on. Maybe you were working on bringing together some type of social group or some type of social network. Not sure. But you will now be receiving those rewards and those benefits from putting forth that work over the last couple of years. So this is all that I have for the Saturn retrograde video. And if you have any comments, if you are feeling this energy, you know, like, share, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what's going on. I like to talk and kind of see how this is affecting everyone. And if this has been helpful, please go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I hope this has been helpful. Y'all have a wonderful week. Bye.